There is a strange paradox in the air. The more we talk about demonstrations, the less they happen. The more you study, the more distant the miracle seems. And the more you search, the more desire slips through your fingers. Maybe because the problem was never the lack of knowledge, but excess theory without presence. We live in an era where spirituality has become content. Books, videos, beautiful phrases on social media. But if quantum manifestation was about information, we would have been living our highest selves a long time ago. The truth, however, is more subtle and uncomfortable. You can learn all about wave collapse, quantum physics, neuroplasticity, and yet vibrate scarcity, and yet feel fear, and yet continue creating the same old reality. Because the field doesn't read what you know. He reads what you are. And this is where our journey begins. Deconstruct the illusion that understanding is the same as transforming, and access the exact point where reality bends, when knowledge leaves the mind and it becomes frequency in the body. There is a silent phenomenon that traps us in self-deception, the familiarity bias. The mind reads something, hears something, and says, "I already know that." But the body remains trapped in the same impulses, the same emotions, the same cycles, as if intellectual knowledge were a spiritual placebo. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman called this the difference between System 1 and System 2 of the mind. System 1 is fast, automatic, based on unconscious reactions. System 2 is slow, analytical, conscious. And the problem is that 95% of your life is being governed by System 1. In other words, for everything that you don't think consciously, but feel, react to, fear. This is where the demonstration happens, or gets lost. That's why reading a book about abundance doesn't make you vibrate in abundance. That's why watching self-love videos doesn't dissolve the fear of rejection. The mind confuses understanding with transformation, but the quantum field doesn't read what you understand. He reads what you radiate. Manifestation does not happen at the level of concept. It happens at the level of vibrational coherence. So before looking for yet another technique, yet another formula, yet another spiritual hack, breathe and ask yourself honestly, what I believe I know already lives in my body. Does it already pulse in my choices? Has it become my state of being? Because the field does not respond to information. It responds to integration. There is an invisible layer that defines almost all of our experiences, and we rarely look at it deeply, the emotional state we inhabit daily. It is from this state that our electromagnetic field is born. It is in this state that the quality of our vibration is formed, and it is exactly this state that the quantum field translates as reality. Now watch. What is your predominant state when trying to manifest something? Do you visualize wanting it, but at the same time afraid of not being able to achieve it? You affirm gratitude, but your body vibrates with tension? Do you say, "I trust," but inside you're begging? This is not a moral contradiction. It is vibrational incoherence. The quantum field, as physics teaches us, responds to coherence, not to isolated intention. He doesn't read what you say with your lips, but what your heart is silently radiating. And here comes one of the biggest traps of modern protest, trying to co-create from a body stuck in a state of survival. What is this state? It is the chemical cycle activated by stress, fear, and chronic anxiety. This is when cortisol rules the body and the brain goes into defense mode. This is when the nervous system interprets life as a constant, yet invisible threat. And when that happens, your entire being goes into a short-term pattern. Your breathing becomes shallow, his gaze becomes narrow, your focus is fixed on what is missing. And without realizing it, you begin to manifest not from the abundance you desire, but from the scarcity he feels. You visualize, but you doubt. He affirms, but he keeps an eye on things all the time to see if it has arrived. Meditate, but unable to relax. The body in this scenario becomes incoherent. And incoherence is like a broken signal. The field cannot respond accurately. Dr. Joe Dispenza shows us that body chemistry needs to be aligned with inner vision. This means that if you want to manifest health, you need to feel health before it arrives. If you want abundance, you need to tune into the vibration of already having. But how do you do that if your body is stuck in fight or flight mode? This is the blind spot of 95% of people who try to manifest. They make affirmations, write letters to the universe, practice visualizations, But all this while, the nervous system screams for survival. And here's the key no one wants to look at. It is not possible to create a quantum future, inhabiting an emotional chemistry based on the traumatic past, because the body doesn't lie, and the field responds to the dominant vibration, not to temporary intention. So the question arises, how to get out of this cycle? The answer is simple, but it requires courage. It is necessary to regulate the internal state before trying to change the external one. You have to teach your body to feel safe without external evidence. It is necessary to create a field of peace, even in the midst of doubt. This is done through practices that involve the body. Conscious breathing, active meditation, slow and intentional movement, emotional repetition of elevated states, not just positive thoughts. When the body begins to feel what was previously only idealized, when the heart beats at a frequency of trust, even without rational reasons, then the field realizes, now there is coherence. And it is at this moment that reality begins to respond. To demonstrate is not to ask, it is to radiate. And you don't radiate what you want. You radiate what you are, at the most subtle and deep level of your emotional state. So maybe the question is no longer, what do I want to attract? But yes, what state is creating my reality today? There is a place in us where desire and fear embrace, where what we want most also scares us. And as contradictory as it may seem, it is in this space that many manifestations die before they are even born. It's easy to wish for a new love, a prosperous life, and a healthy body. But the unconscious, that invisible territory that operates silently beneath the surface, does not move easily towards the unknown. He prefers what is familiar, even if it hurts. This is the trap of the emotional familiarity zone, a place where old pains become identities, where frustration disguises itself as protection, and where known suffering is preferred to unpredictable expansion. Bruce Lipton, cell biologist and pioneer of epigenetics, reminds us that the emotional environment shapes the expression of our genes. In other words, your body chemically adapts to the emotional pattern you repeat every day. If you live on alert, your biology is shaped by fear. If you live in poverty, your cells learn to survive on little. And the most dangerous thing is that you start to identify with this pattern. You don't just feel scarcity, you believe you are scarce. You don't just fear abandonment, you start to believe that you were born to be left. And this is where the greatest paradox of manifestation arises. Do you want to change your life, but at the same time, you fear that you will no longer be who you have always been? Because change means moving away from the narrative that kept you safe. It means breaking with the identity of those who fight, those who hope, those who dream but never achieve. And this rupture, for the unconscious, is perceived as death. That's why so many people get stuck when they're about to achieve something big. They sabotage a relationship that could be healthy. They miss opportunities at the last second. They postpone decisions that could free them. It's not bad luck. It is unconscious fidelity to the version of yourself that learned to survive in pain. And the body, like a faithful mirror of the unconscious, responds with tension, resistance, anxiety. It's the fear of expanding, fear of not recognizing yourself in abundance, fear of losing bonds that only exist because you remain small. And here's a truth that few have the courage to face. You may be afraid not of failing, but of finally succeeding. Because achieving this requires sustaining a new frequency, and that means giving up the comfort of known pain. Quantum manifestation, in this context, is not just a process of creation. It is a process of deep liberation, of letting die layers of identity that no longer vibrate with the new reality you desire. But for that, emotional courage is needed. You need to look inside and ask, who have I become to survive? What kind of love, scarcity, or pain have I accepted as normal? Am I really ready to experience something different, or am I still clinging to the pain I know? Only when you are willing to go through that fear of no longer recognizing oneself, of being rejected for changing, of feeling strange in the new life he had asked for so much, is that the field will be able to respond with new possibilities, because the field does not offer the new to those who are still committed to the old. He waits for a clear signal, the inner willingness to let go, even your old identity. So ask yourself with tenderness, not judgment, are you ready to receive what you want? or are you still attached to what you already know? Every true manifestation is, first and foremost, a break with the image you have built of yourself. It's not just about creating something new out there, but to undo what has been solidified here within, this invisible structure of beliefs, memories, and repetitions that you call me. Most people try to manifest a new reality without touching the identity that underpins the old one. They want abundance, but they still identify with the figure who struggles. They want love, but they still see themselves as someone who is difficult to love. They want freedom, but they still wear the mask of control. And here the vibrational contradiction arises. How the field can collapse into a new future if your point of emission is still tied to the past. Joe Dispenza teaches that every time you act, feel, and think as if your desired future were already real, you start to collapse that future into the now. But for this to happen, the old identity needs to stop being center stage. The past self needs to be dismantled, with compassion, but without mercy. This is not easy, because identity is addictive. It offers predictability. It tells you who you are, even when it means repeating the pain. If you grew up hearing that you had to fight to be recognized, it is likely that he identified with the role of the warrior, the resilient, the strong. And even though it's kept you going this far, it could be exactly this self-image that today prevents you from receiving with ease, from trusting, from resting. Because demonstrating requires surrender. And the identity based on struggle doesn't know how to let go. She mistakes rest for weakness, confuses flow with loss of control. Quantum transformation, then, does not happen when you desire something new. It happens when you begin to inhabit, with your body, with your heart, with your mind, the you who already lives in this new scenario. It's like changing the radio station. You don't have to destroy the old music. You just choose another frequency. But to do so, you need to stop identifying with the previous speaker. Self-image is like a vibrational mold. As long as you keep silently saying, "I'm just like this," you will continue to collapse versions of reality that validate this mold. Hence the first real collapse. It's the old narrative you carry around with you. It's looking in the mirror and recognizing that what you see is not who you are, but who you learn to be to protect yourself, to please yourself, to belong. Manifesting is not about changing the world out there. It's about embodying your future self as if it were already you now. It's feeling new before it exists. It is to vibrate the result before it appears. It is acting from the truth of what has not yet materialized, but already pulsates as possible. And this requires a profound act of surrender. Release what you think is, to become what your soul always knew you could be. So before you ask the field, "What can I manifest?" ask yourself with tenderness and courage, "Who am I willing to stop being?" In recent years, the language of spirituality has become popular. Words like manifest, universe, gratitude, and frequency have become commonplace in social media captions, book covers, and motivational slogans. But with this popularization, something precious was lost. Depth gave way to easy promise. The sacred has become a technique, and the universe became a waiter. The illusion has been created that all you have to do is ask and wait, that thinking positive is enough, that writing a sentence 33 times in a notebook is enough to collapse the desired reality. And when nothing happens, the blame falls on the practitioner. You didn't believe enough. Or worse, you're not vibrating right. This is not spirituality. It's childish magic. It's an unconscious attempt to keep alive the fantasy that there is an external force that will solve everything without you having to transform yourself inside. But quantum manifestation doesn't work like that. Because the field does not respond to the infantilization of faith. It responds to the energetic maturity of those who have become responsible for their frequency. True spirituality is adult. She doesn't deny the desire, but understand that every desire carries an internal call to align, to heal, to mature. It's not about asking, but of becoming. It's not about demanding, but to radiate. The universe is not a cosmic catalog. He is a vibrational mirror, and the demonstration is not a request. It is a reflection of your internal coherence. So waiting for the universe to bring something to you, without you becoming the receptive field for it, it's like trying to tune into a radio station without changing the frequency. What lies behind this childish view of spirituality is the fear of responsibility, because assuming your own frequency is also assuming that no one will save you, that there is no guarantee, that there are no shortcuts. It's hard to look at this, but it's liberating, because by abandoning the fantasy of the waiter universe, you come into contact with a much more authentic power, the power of conscious, living, embodied co-creation. This power does not depend on luck, it depends on presence. It demands that you stop outsourcing your reality, stop using spirituality as an escape valve, and start using it as a deep alignment tool. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you sustain energetically. You don't attract what you ask for, you attract what you have become able to contain, and that changes everything. From this point on, the universe ceases to be a cosmic waiter, and it becomes a living field that responds to your vibrational maturity. So the question is no longer, what do I want to receive? But yes, what am I ready to sustain with my state of being? There are words that sound lofty, statements that seem to vibrate faith, intentions that, on the surface, carry the appearance of spirituality, but that, in real frequency, emanate despair, fear, and doubt disguised as light. Phrases like, I trust that everything will work out, I just know the universe has something better for me, I'm trying to keep the vibration high. They are not wrong, but often they hide an unresolved emotional subtext, a kind of desperate prayer dressed as optimism. It's what we call camouflaged positivity, the attempt to mask fear with pretty words, covering anxiety with spiritual phrases. To use the language of light, to avoid facing one's own shadow. But the quantum field, this intelligent field that responds to vibration, don't be fooled by words. He reads what's behind. He decodes the emotion behind the sentence. It responds to the body, the heart, the unconscious. You can assert confidence, but if inside you are tense, impatient, constantly checking whether it worked, the field will respond to the frequency of doubt, not confidence. It's like sending a mixed signal. The mind asks, but the body rejects. The mouth declares faith, but the heart beats with fear. And this dissonance creates noise, vibrational noise, energy noise, noise in communication with the field. And where there is noise, there is no clear collapse. Reality doesn't know which timeline to respond to, so it remains in suspension, in the almost indefinitely. That's why many people say, I'm doing everything right, but nothing happens. Because the problem is not in what is visible. It is in what is felt, but not recognized. Detecting these dissonances is an act of profound lucidity. It is necessary to go beyond conscious language and start listening to the body's whispers. The tension in your stomach when you say something, the tightness in the chest when declaring faith, the shaky tone of voice when he says, I deserve it. These are all clues. Clues that there are parts of you that still don't believe. They are still injured, who still lives in the what if it doesn't work out frequency. But instead of judging this, it is necessary to welcome. Mature spirituality doesn't pretend that everything is okay. She recognizes the pain and brings it into the field of consciousness. Because only when a hidden belief is seen, it can be transformed. And that takes practice. Listening practice, practice of presence, practice asking, does this statement vibrate with truth or disguised fear? Am I speaking from the heart or just repeating what I heard? By practicing this level of listening, you begin to clear the channel. Begin to remove the emotional fog that distorts your communication with the field. It begins to emit a purer, clearer, more powerful signal, and the field responds. Not because you are now saying the right words, but because now you are being coherent. And where there is coherence, there is a collapse. And where there is vibrational truth, there is a response. So before you repeat another statement, stop, breathe, feel it, and ask yourself honestly, what in me still doesn't believe what I'm saying? Because this question is the portal to a new frequency. Have you ever stopped to think about why it's so easy to fall back into old thoughts? Why, even after a powerful meditation or intense visualization, do you wake up the next day with the same fears, the same doubts, the same patterns? The answer is not in your lack of faith, not even the idea that you aren't vibrating right. It's in the invisible structure of your biology, your neural network. And this is where neuroscience meets spirituality in a practical way. Your brain is a plastic organ. It shapes itself continually according to what you repeat. Repeated thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs become identities. Identities support frequencies. Joe Dispenza reminds us, thinking is training the brain, feeling is training the body, and both need to be trained together for the manifestation to actually happen. But here's the most common mistake. Most people believe that it is enough to believe once, and that the universe will reward them with a new reality. This is a magical expectation, but it is not a quantum manifestation. Faith, in this context, is not a spontaneous feeling. It is a neural construct, a vibrational sculpture that is shaped every day with intention, presence, and deep emotional repetition. You don't become a new version of yourself by knowing what you need to do. You become by repeating until the body believes it. It's like teaching the body to no longer expect abandonment. Teach the heart to trust before there are guarantees. Teaching the mind to silence the what-ifs with a presence that knows, I am. But this doesn't happen in a day. Not even in an insight. It happens in cycles, repetition, training. Neuroplasticity is the technical name. But in the spiritual realm, we call this vibrational practice. It's the commitment to cultivate every day the emotion of what you don't yet see. It is the act of accessing the memory of the future with the present body, and maintain this frequency even in the face of external silence. It is not about mechanical repetition, but of emotional reconsolidation. Imagine the following. Every time you connect with an elevated emotion, gratitude, joy, trust, and hold that emotion for a few minutes with presence and intention, you are rewiring the circuits of your mind. You are strengthening neural networks that support the new version of reality you want to manifest. This is trained faith, not blind faith that expects miracles, but conscious faith that builds inner space to receive. And the more you repeat, the more natural it becomes. But the body begins to recognize that new frequency as familiar. And when something is familiar, the unconscious stops resisting. And then finally, the field begins to respond. Because now there is coherence. Now there is consistency. Now there is a vibrational signature clear enough to collapse a new pathway. Therefore, manifestation does not happen when you want. It happens when is neurologically and emotionally prepared to support what he asked for. So stop looking for a magical moment and start building the magic repetition. Train your faith like you train a new language, like someone training a new gesture, a new way of breathing. Because the demonstration is not an isolated act. It is an energetic musculature, and it develops with loving discipline and daily dedication. There is a persistent belief that haunts the universe of manifestation, that it is all about magic, that it is something mystical, ethereal, random, as if the universe responded to requests made with sufficient faith, or to wishes written in a secret notebook under the light of a full moon. But the real, conscious, measurable manifestation has nothing to do with magic. It has to do with physics, more specifically, with electromagnetic coherence. The HeartMath Institute, a world-renowned center for research on emotions, the heart, and the electromagnetic field, shows us something profound. The heart has an electromagnetic field up to 60 times more powerful than that of the brain. This field expands meters away from the body, and it changes according to the emotional state you are in, i.e., its vibration is not a poetic metaphor. It's a real, measurable frequency that you emit all the time. Now add this to the quantum field, a field of infinite possibilities which responds to coherence, not force. This field is in constant dialogue with your vibration. And what does this field read? They are not your isolated thoughts, nor his mechanically repeated statements. It reads the quality of your electromagnetic field. And this field is formed by the union between intention, mind, and emotion, heart. When both are aligned, you become an antenna, a living magnet, a reality collapser. But when they are in conflict, when the mind says, I can, and the heart screams, this is not for me, the signal sent to the field becomes noisy, fragmented, weak, and the field responds with silence, or with more of what is already dominant in you. That's why wishing for something with mental strength is not enough. Manifestation begins when the mind and heart sing the same song, when intention is high and emotion is stable, when thought becomes feeling and feeling becomes vibrational action. This coherence creates a magnetic field, and this magnetic field interacts with the quantum field. But most people live in incoherence. They want peace, but they live on alert. They want abundance, but feel guilty when they receive it. They want love, but they fear being truly seen, and the field captures that. Does not judge, does not punish, does not reward, it just mirrors. Therefore, manifesting is not about mentalizing, it's about becoming. It's about tuning your entire energetic system, mind, emotion, body, to one note. And this tuning happens when you regulate yourself, when you learn to leave the chaos of fear and enter the harmony of presence. When you breathe and ask, is what I'm feeling right now aligned with what I'm asking for? If the answer is no, don't blame yourself. Just reorient, return to the center, reconnect with the emotion of what you want before it exists outside of you. Because when you vibrate as if you already have, the field starts to treat you like who you already are. And then what we call manifestation is nothing more than a matter responding to the clear signal of someone who has remembered their own power. We live in the age of distraction, an era where the mind is constantly hijacked by notifications, messages, short videos, instant promises of emotional relief. We have never been so connected, and paradoxically, so disconnected from ourselves. And if manifestation is, as we have seen, a process of sustained vibrational coherence, then distraction becomes the most dangerous invisible enemy of co-creation. Because every time you fragment, every time you jump from one tab to another, from one feed to another, from one thought to another, you lose the vibrational thread that was being woven. A scattered mind cannot sustain intention. And without sustained intent, there is no collapse in the field. Digital dopamine, that mechanism that addicts the brain to small spikes of immediate pleasure, reprograms your nervous system to seek stimulation, not depth. You get used to being stimulated, but not to staying present. You get used to initiating desires, but not sustaining them. And it is at this point that the demonstration dies, not for lack of desire, nor for any error in technique, but due to lack of vibrational continuity. The mind that desires today and forgets tomorrow is not read by the field as intention, but as noise. The field understands it's not serious yet, it's not clear yet, and reality remains where it always was. That's why so many people say, I manifested for a while, but then I stopped. Or, I feel like my energy is fluctuating a lot. Yes, it is, because there is no practice of presence. There is no cultivation of focus. There is no vibrational return ritual. Manifesting is holding a frequency until it becomes the new normal. And sustaining requires attention, requires silencing excess noise, demands to go back, back, back. Modern spirituality needs to relearn the value of attention as a sacred act, because where your attention goes, your energy goes, and where your energy goes, your reality is born. Simple practices can reverse this situation. Create moments of intentional silence throughout the day. Breathe consciously when accessing social media. Set aside blocks of time to visualize, not just with images, but with somatic emotion. Reduce stimuli before bed so that the nocturnal field receives clean emissions. Use affirmations as vibrational anchors, not as anxiety crutches. Attention is the portal. Presence is the channel. Conscious repetition in a regulated state is the mechanism. The field doesn't need much time to respond. He needs a clear and continuous signal. And this only comes from the practice of being whole. So the question is not, what are you manifesting? But yes, are you present enough to support what you want to see born? There is an instant, almost imperceptible, when reality begins to bend. It's not when you think intensely, not even when performing a specific ritual. It's before, long before. It is at the exact moment when you allow yourself to feel early, even though nothing out there has changed yet. Even if no evidence says it is now, it's as if something inside you silently decides, I already am, I already have it, I already am. And this internal state precedes the external manifestation. That is the real secret. But it is also the hardest to live, because it contradicts everything we have been taught. We learned that we should only celebrate after the achievement, that we can only relax after security, that we only deserve to feel full after arrival. But the quantum field does not work by conditioned merit. He responds to the vibration of inner certainty, not to the chronology of events. Neville Goddard called this living in the end. Feel, imagine, emotionally inhabit the desired outcome as if it were already real, not as an escape nor as a fantasy, but as an act of conscious creation. And here comes a fundamental concept: somatic visualization. It is not enough to imagine with the mind. You need to involve your body, because it is the body, and not just the thought, that emits the frequency to the field. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, how would my body move if I were already living the reality I desire? What would my breathing be like? My walk, my gaze? Now, feel. Feel what it would be like to wake up in this scenario. Feel how you would relate to yourself. How would you talk to others? What kind of decisions would you make? And keep this for a few minutes. Not as a quick technique, but as a vibrational reminder. Like someone who wears the skin of the future and says, I am now what I once hoped to be. This practice is radical because it breaks with linear logic. She abandons the when it happens, I will be, and chooses because I am, it will happen. And this is the point where the field starts to respond, because now there is a body in coherence, a clear vibration, an energetic signature that says, I am ready. Not ready in the sense of perfection, but in the sense of availability, ready to feel, ready to receive, ready to sustain. The manifestation then is not the beginning, it's the echo. It is a reflection of your inner readiness. And here's the final metaphor. The key does not turn after opening the door. The key turns before, in the dark, in the silence, in the invisible. And only then, reality moves. So if there is one secret to be revealed, it is this. Don't wait for the outside to tell you that you have arrived. Be the vibrational beginning of the path. And watch, in silence, in presence, the universe dances around you as a reflection of your coherence. Perhaps what makes quantum manifestation most difficult is not the complexity of the technique, but the simplicity of delivery. It's not that you need to learn more. It's just that maybe you need to remember. Remember what it's like to feel without expecting, vibrate without control, support without demanding. Because at the end of the day, manifestation is not about convincing the universe. It's about aligning with what is already yours, but that you haven't yet felt ready to receive. And this readiness is not born of effort. It is born from presence, from practice, from the silence between one thought and another, where the soul whispers, it is now. You don't need to force creation. It needs to become a fertile field where it can flourish, because the universe does not respond to words, responds to coherence, to sustained vibration, to the silent decision of those who, without fanfare, have already become. So, before looking for another technique, sometimes it seems, breathe, and ask honestly, and if I were already ready, what in me still resists today?